oh Polly, it's for your sake alone. I left my dear old father, my country and my home. I left my dear old mother to weep and to mourn. I am a rebel soldier and far from my home. It's grape shot and musket and the cannon lumber loud. There's many a mangled body, the blanket for their shroud. There's many a mangled body left on the fields alone. I am a rebel soldier and far from my home.
Okay, I'm your host, James Wright. Thanks for joining me here today on the broadcast of the 14th day of October, 2020. And I am joining you here live from Kalispell, Montana. I think that I may be broadcasting on 2 YouTube feeds at the same time here. I'm trying to get this Restream software worked out. If anybody in the chat room there can find me and see if there's 2 YouTube streams going simultaneously, I can't tell. But thanks so much for joining me here today on the broadcast. If everything's working properly, we should be simulcasting on quite a few platforms here. Twitter, Facebook, Periscope, DLive, YouTube, and others. So we appreciate you joining us here. We have a returning guest on the broadcast with us today, Mark and Terri Steman. This is our fourth installment here on the show, and they are going to, the title today is Fraud, Forgery, and Fallacies, and we are going to discuss, again, we're going to continue to dig deep into their situation where they've had 7 of their children taken by the state, and this is... folks, if you've watched any of the other 3 videos previously, you see where they were intimidated. There were police there outside. They had video of that. They were sort of hiding behind trees, it seemed. Everything's real suspicious. There's something really, really rotten going on there in their town, and we're trying to dig into that as deep as we can. I do believe, again, I think that we're broadcasting on 2 YouTube streams here, so I don't know how that's all going to work out, but whatever stream you're on, thanks for joining us. So let's go over here and let's bring Mark and Terri back on the show here. Let me unmute their microphone, and we'll bring them on the air here momentarily. We should be on in just a moment. There we go. Mark and Terri Lynn Steman, thanks again for joining us here on Northwest Liberty News.
Hi, Jim. Thank you for having us back on as we continue forward in our story. And what we know is a similar script happening to many other families across the country and exposing the criminality within the CPS and family court system that is working to destroy American families, including our own. And we just appreciate you and the American people and our friends around the world tuning in to see actually what is really happening, because a lot of people talk it up. And in our case, our objective was that we want to prove what's really going on. And we appreciate you sticking with us as we move forward. As you said, we do have a tremendous amount of information. And it's important that we get into the details, as you mentioned, so that people can see the full extent of the travesties happening, not just with us, but so many others.
I'm going to make a quick program note here. Just in 2 days from now, Mary Flynn O'Neill will be here with her daughter, Kristen, on the show, and I know you know Mary Flynn O'Neill and her daughter Kristen is going to be on here to go further into their situation, where no one's immune, folks. Even if your last name is Flynn, they still going to come after you. And CPS, they've got their own situation with Child Protective Services, so we're delighted to have them on the show here on Friday. So how do you guys want to do it, Mark and Terri? Do you want to just? I know I have some of the slides here. Do you want to do a quick recap of what we've talked about to this point, like about a 2-minute synopsis? Or you want to just jump right into we can have people look at the previous videos, certainly, to get caught up, or do you want to just jump right into the info? I have pretty much everything loaded, I think, and ready to go, and waiting. Whenever you're ready, we can go ahead and start.
Okay, Jim, great. Yeah, I think a little bit of a recap might be beneficial for everyone.
Sure.
We are still at the very early stages of this entire sequence of events prior to our children even being actually kidnapped. Everything up to the current day, and what we're going to cover today is all in respect to the enticement and the fraudulent activity, and it will show more of the collusion and the conspiracy. Our daughter, Amy, our 17-year-old daughter, at the time we took her in for an eye test, and without any forensics, she was identified as having an alleged mental health condition without a psychiatric evaluation, which subsequently resulted in the fabrication of many documents and process where we were actually intimidated, as you said, and enticed by the Louisville Metro Police Department, just creating a lot of terror and unrest in our lives without any basis. We had been to another doctor's office, a nurse practitioner, for another assessment, and she was given a bill of good health, and she wasn't under any restrictions. We felt good about that. We presented it to the CPS officials, went to their office, presented that to the police. And despite all of that, they still showed up and attempted the actual kidnapping of our children on March 30th. Now, after that, there were additional things that happened, which will show continued negligence and dereliction. So it kind of brings us up to the current day. We left off on the events of March 31st, and then it continued into April 1st. And the morning of April 1st, we received a document from two of the same Louisville Metro Police Department officers that were there the day before, or excuse me, on March 30th. And they presented a document, and we're going to start off with the video there. Actually, Jim, let's start with the documents. I want to show documents 1A and 1B, just so people can see that, this is all about orders. Okay, there was a verbal order. People have seen this little memo that was written and put in our door on March 30th before they left to get us, to entice us to go to a court. It obviously is not a legal document, just kind of, leading us to think that we have to go there. Family court procedures state very, very clearly that no children are to be removed on a verbal order. And this was presented as if from a judge in a verbal order. And as Terri Lynn mentioned in the last interview, that, I wonder if the judge is really okay with this, because, it definitely goes against the rules and procedures that they're supposed to be following. And go ahead and continue on to the next document. And I want to show a little bit of a video, a little bit less than a minute. This will be video 12. And Jim, if you would go ahead and play this, you can kind of hear the officers on.
Okay, you know what? There has to be according to the Constitution of the state.
Sorry, I can start it back over again. I didn't know you were going to do an explanation. Please go right ahead.
It's okay. There was just a couple of time markers here where the officer clearly states that this was a quarter to show up at court tomorrow at 1 p.m. And this was on March 31st. So you can go ahead and play it just so people can see he's on the other side of the door, but really can't hear him, but you can kind of see my response and engagement with him on it.
Yes, sir, may I help you? Is this a search warrant or a seizure warrant? It's not a search or a seizure warrant? Okay, and what is the basis for this? Okay, you know what? There has to be according to the Constitution of the state of Kentucky, sir, Officer Shelton. Okay, you know what? I will take a look at that document. You may leave it in the door, but that is not a search warrant or a seizure warrant. You affirmed that.
All right, you can go ahead and shut it off.
Okay, that's you can almost, I could hear him. The folks at home probably couldn't hear him, but it wasn't a search and seizure warrant. It was a verbal order to show up at the court tomorrow at 1 p.m. This is not how things are supposed to be done. You can't especially when it's something with the magnitude of taking your children from you. I mean, I can't believe, Mark and Terri Lynn, that this is the proper court procedure that they go through in Kentucky.
No, it's not. Here's the other thing. If you go ahead to the next document, 2A, we presented this document also in the previous interview. It shows what appears to be just like a standard word generated product. And I think that, court proceedings and government documents have to be on administrative office of the court's forms. And I'm not convinced that this is even a legitimate document, but you can see there toward the bottom, it says, "It is hereby ordered that we appear and produce the children." Okay, they were after all 7 of the kids. This had nothing to do at this point with just our one daughter. And, so it's clearly evident that, something is going on here. And so, it's pretty strange because in this document, they allege that there's an emergency, and we mentioned this before, but, just to reiterate, how is it that if you've got a child in imminent danger, which they state, that you put out a document saying that, oh, well, we're going to go ahead and hold pending, any other action pending your appearance in court? It's like, according to state law, which we'll look at here in a few minutes, they're required to act on the basis of a report to secure the safety and needs of the children. And these are criminal activities that they were engaging in. These are punishable as misdemeanors and or felonies in some cases. So, and continuing on, Jim, to the next document, what we'll see here is that, and going forward, I want to mention that in paragraph 11, it states that a written instrument means that any instrument article containing a written or printed matter for the purpose of, and you'll see down there a couple lines below, for identification. Now, on that document that we just looked at previously, that order to appear, two of the names on there did not identify our children correctly. The names were misspelled. And, just for the sake of integrity in the whole process, we did not want to authenticate something to us that appeared to be fraudulent. They're required by law to make sure that the information is correct on these documents, and it obviously was not, which created even more suspicion for us and made us see that document, that order to appear, as a forgery. It did not meet the criteria under state law to be a legitimate court document. Next slide, Jim. Along those lines, that order to appear document came to us on the morning of March 31st. That was not a summons, a legitimate summons to court. As we presented in our last interview, the summons documents came later in that evening. And 2 of the summons documents that were presented, of course, without the other forms that were required by state law, also did not properly identify our children. The one here is for Elena. So obviously a misspelling on her name, a lot of incomplete information on the form. And the next slide is the same one for Abby. Abby is the name of our 7th child, the cute little red one on the right side of our avatar. And she, Abigail is, we couldn't understand where someone got the name Abigail, because her name is not Abigail. And it is a nickname, though, that was occasionally used within our family. And it's pretty strange that somehow this shows up on a government document when we've never used that name before any government official.
And that's not even signed.
And in addition, you can see that on hers that it wasn't well, that there's no signature or that appears there. But again, some of these forms, because they were shoved in our door in the middle of a rainstorm that night, some things to get bled through. So I'm not quite sure if it's just not picking it up there on the scan. Okay, next slide.
Doesn't look like a signature there to me. Rain or no rain, it doesn't look like it's been signed at all, frankly.
Yeah, there was no real signatures in a lot of the forms. It was just initials that we could never really verify.
So if you go in really tight here, there's something, it looks like If you go in really tight right here, and I don't know if you can see that, there's some watermarks, but let's just say it's just watermarks. It doesn't look like it's actually signature stuff. So yeah, interesting. Okay, so we want to go to the next slide. Okay, there we go.
Okay, so what we did was on the morning of April the 1st, we were, with the documents that, that we had received up to this point, we had questioned before the court system that we wanted to make a memorandum to get to the judge, because we had we were questioning the legitimacy of this as to whether or not there was really going to be a legitimate court hearing. We additionally had, some issues with some vehicle problems. Strangely, we had never really had any problems with our vehicle, except in very certain situations, select situations. And this was one where the vehicle that we were using at the time belonged to the person who eventually got our kids, and it was equipped with one of those high-tech Viper devices where you could actually shut it down or just disable it. And we didn't really know that that could be what was contributing to this at the time until it happened several other times later on in our story. But on this day, we weren't able to really get there. So what we attempted to do was reach the courthouse and to ask to reestablish the legitimacy of our children's names on valid forms. Of course, we got the standard runaround, we got the video of that, but we're not going to show any of those clips here today for the sake of time. And of course, nothing really happened. They weren't willing to really do anything for us. So we proceeded to dial 911, and we wanted to ask for police assistance because we perceived this as a threat to our family, that, if we didn't do this, or if we did, what would it mean? We didn't know who was really going to be there, what was going to happen. So we wanted to have some sort of verification of something. So we did get a response. A police officer showed up, and but they refused to help us and to take that memorandum down to the courthouse. Next slide. So I want to highlight a couple of things here, Jim, in respect to the way the process is supposed to unfold. And this is also annotated on the summons and other court documents, which we'll see here in a couple of minutes. But according to KRS 620030, paragraph 1, it states that any person who knows or has a reasonable cause to believe that a child is in a DNA situation, they shall meaning mandatory under state law, immediately cause an oral written report to be made to a local law enforcement agency. And they're supposed to act to secure the needs of the children, or any child that's in this situation. Now, in this case, they did not do that for us. Next slide. And you can kind of see there in paragraph 6 that it says any person who intentionally violates the provisions of this section, namely KRS 620 chapter there, is
Bryce,
subject
is that the wait, number 6? Is that the old? Do you want me to go to the next slide for number 6? Sorry.
Yeah, next slide.
Okay,
no,
sorry.
It's okay. You'll see there in red at the bottom.
Oh, there it goes.
It's a penal statute. Okay, and for the initial violation, it's a misdemeanor, Class B misdemeanor, and subsequent actions of negligence result, it can go up to a felony. So the fact that they did not do that makes them culpable, and it certainly isn't an act of good faith. I mean, you couldn't look at that and say that kind of dereliction with the alleged condition and the way that they acted is not indicative that this was a legitimate thing. So continue on to the next slide. There's an additional subsection in 040, and again, you'll see there in paragraph 1A, it says, upon receipt of a report alleging this kind of a situation, the recipient of the report shall immediately notify the cabinet, local law enforcement, and in paragraph B, it says they're supposed to assess the risk of harm and immediate safety of the child, and highlighted there in red. And based on that level of risk, they are supposed to investigate and act. Well, of course, they were there to harass and intimidate us. They certainly didn't act when they leave and don't come back. And again, all of this is geared toward apparently entrapment to get us to appear somewhere so they could get all 7 of our kids without actually following any of the due process established by law. So There's other highlighted areas there that the people can go back and look at. I'm not going to spend too much time on it here for the sake of time, but that also is a penal statute. And you go on to the next slide, 5B, and you'll see that there's additional information there with respect to what law enforcement officers are supposed to do. That if they become aware, paragraph C there, Jim, I think at the bottom, go down a little bit more. Yeah, right there. So that they can take a child into custody, if they, so it's like if they have affidavits and petitions that are sworn and, they say they have an emergency custody order, they were negligent and and by the way, they behaved and not coming back and securing the needs of our daughter. So again, that subsection is also penal. If you continue on to 5C, is just kind of the back end of this state law.
Hold on for 1 second. Let me go back to this here. There's some wording in here that's interesting. It says right here, if there exists reasonable grounds for the officer to believe that the child is in danger of imminent death or serious physical injury, is being sexually abused, or is a victim of human trafficking, and that the parents or other persons exercising custodial control or supervision are unable or unwilling to protect the child. So it seems to be important. I know it's for our cases, it's not, but it seems to be that the part where the parents or other persons exercising custodial control or supervision are unable or unwilling to protect the child. You were never unable or unwilling to protect your child, were you? You were always willing to do that, were you not?
That's an excellent point, Jim, and absolutely not. We have shown clearly that we were fully engaged in taking care of the needs of our daughter. When we became aware of what we thought was a vision problem, we took her in to get checked. When there was an allegation of a condition with no basis in any forensics, we took her to another healthcare provider who assessed her, as I said, in good health. So, there was no indication of negligence. We were fully aware that our daughter was, happy, healthy, and overall in good shape. And we presented this to the officers on March 30th. We presented that good health document. So, but still, even presenting that document to them, the allegations still stood. And then we see all of the subsequent documentation was created a lot of contradictions in the overall process. So no, we were not negligent. We did not abuse our daughter or any of our other children who really weren't even involved in respect to the nature of the initial allegation.
So I just want to make that clear. I read that in that highlighted area there, and I that and is it's a big and, meaning if all those things are going on and the parents aren't willing to protect the child, then you can take the child. So that's a big
That's
and.
correct.
It's a big and. At any rate.
And is inclusive there, Jim, and you make a very good point. Thank you for bringing that out.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're at the next one here. Family services and law enforcement officers. We'll take a quick break here in a minute. Good.
Yeah, this is the back end of the KRS, Jim, and there's really nothing there that I want to touch upon here. But so we can continue on to the next slide. And I just want to show that according to KRS 620990, failure to comply with any of the provisions of 620 is also penal. Okay, it's a Class B misdemeanor, and that's what I just wanted to show there. You can continue on to the next slide. Now, we have talked about KRS 610050 in previous interviews. And in this, we were highlighting on the fact that they did not follow the 645 process as required by the nature of the alleged condition. However, in this case, I want to touch upon the fact that no emergency removal or temporary custody order is effective unless the provisions of KRS 620 are followed. Now, we've already presented a couple areas, and there's several more where the provisions of KRS 620 were not followed, which means that whether it's a ghost emergency custody order that they never presented in writing to us, or whether it's one that is fabricated and presented to us later unlawfully, as we'll show, it's all invalid. And with that, with no emergency custody order in place, then a legitimate one anyway, you can go on to the next slide. That also is a misdemeanor crime, and it's another act of bad faith and negligence. And So therefore, what do we have? If we have all these things going on, is that not the basis for custodial interference, as I mentioned in our previous interview? Is that not the basis also for an attempted kidnapping? I would say yes. What do you think?
Oh yeah, they kidnapped, all right. There's no doubt about it. And we're going to take a quick break. And before we do, though, I'm going to read the names once again of your precious children: Amy, Noah, Elena, Daisy, Teddy, Bo, David, and Abby. Those are the 7 children that our guest today had taken from them. And you can see this was an all hands on deck concerted effort. It looked like to me to get all of your children. Because what you're looking at when you look at the 7 children there, I mean, you're looking at thousands and thousands of dollars a month, and that's really how they're looking at it. That they don't really care really about you, about your service, about the fact that you loved your children and provided a home for them, to thrive in. Makes no difference. Makes no difference because there's a lot of cash at stake here. And it's sad, folks, that, what I'm telling you is just absolutely the truth. So much stuff's coming out right now. I mean, overnight, all the stuff's coming out about these crooks, these criminals, these hardcore, deep state crooks and criminals. And you better believe that when all this stuff comes out, family courts and CPS and foster care is all going to be tied into it when it's all the smoke clears. We're just going to take a quick break. Mark and Terri Lynn, and we come back on the other side. We'll pick back up here, with your story. We so much appreciate you taking the time here to come on the show. And I'm just going to go ahead and mute your microphone there, and I'll be back here in just a couple of minutes, or pretty short breaks. I'll be back with Mark and Terri Lynn Steman, better known as the Forgotten American, on Twitter. And why don't you go ahead and give out your websites before we go to a break here, before I mute the microphone. Mark, you or Terri Lynn, go ahead and give out your websites and where people can find out more about you.
Thank you, Jim. It's Terri.
Hi, Terri.
Yes, people can contact us through direct message on Twitter at No Longer Ignored, or they can email us at letourchildrengo@protonmail.com. If anybody wants to reach out to us in regards to our own situation, or if a family needs support to get connected for support issues, that's what we are working on, starting an organization to be able to do that, to work with other advocates, former foster parents, former foster parents, former foster children, adopted children, families that are currently dealing with the system. And that is going to be letourchildrengo.org. And that we're still working on that. But yeah, the best way to get in touch with me right now is through direct message on Twitter at No Longer Ignored, or through email at letourchildrengo@protonmail.com.
You're welcome. Letourchildrengo@protonmail.com, or at No Longer Ignored on Twitter. And we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be back after these brief messages here with Mark and Terri Lynn Steman on Northwest Liberty News, northwestlibertynews.com. It's northwestlibertynews.com. We certainly do appreciate your support.
PatriotPrepared.com carries the leading brands of storable food from Legacy and Heaven's Harvest. Patriot Prepared. Our name says it all. We're dedicated to empowering you to be self-reliant and confident in any circumstance. Whether you want to be prepared in the event of an emergency or you're an outdoor sports enthusiast, PatriotPrepared.com has prepackaged meals and kits for your entire family. Legacy, Heaven's Harvest are known for high-quality, great-tasting, GMO-free, nutritious food with no chemical preservatives. Simple to prepare, easy to store, gluten-free and organic high-quality nutrition options with a 25-year shelf life. You can't beat the feeling of being food secure when you need it most. So go to PatriotPrepared.com right now to pick up your supply of high-quality storable food for your family, because it makes good sense to be prepared. That's PatriotPrepared.com.
Have you heard of Protovite? The most common health concern today is poor digestive health. Unlike ordinary supplements, Protovite is a liquid multi-nutrient formula with patent-pending absorption technology. A published scientific study proves that Protovite is nutrition that gets in 100% of the time. Protovite uses the highest quality ingredients to rapidly nourish every cell in your body.
My name is Sandra. 6 weeks ago, when I started taking Protovite, I was on 14 medications, from everything for blood pressure to fibromyalgia. In the first 10 days, my blood sugar dropped 50 points, and my fibromyalgia pain is gone. And so was 12 of the 14 medications that I was taking.
Protovite, nutrition that gets in. Buy Protovite now.
Thank you, Protovite, for giving my life back.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Work with your doctor when taking medications. Make Protovite part of your healthy lifestyle.
Okay, folks, if you want some of the finest top quality liquid vitamin supplementations on the market, go to bloodboost.net. That's bloodboost.net, and check out the full line of Protovite products there. You can there's pretty much any level of activity that you have in your life. There's a product there for you at bloodboost.net. And the great thing about it, the great thing about bloodboost.net, or the products there, they all help boost your immune system, which is a great thing. If you want to support this program, otherwise, you can go to northwestlibertynews.com. That's northwestlibertynews.com. Click on the Support Independent News button there, or you can go to GoFundMe and type in Support Truth and News on a search. That'll bring you to the GoFundMe page, or become a Patreon. We always appreciate our Patreons. Patreon.com, Northwest Liberty News. And I think a lot of those links are on the website, northwestlibertynews.com. If none of that suits you, please just go ahead and hit the like button and share the video around so we can highlight, sadly, the tragic stories of a lot of people that we have here on the broadcast that are dealing right now with CPS and have their kids literally kidnapped. And we have two of those parents on the show with us today, Mark and Terri Lynn Steman. Mark and Terri Lynn, we so much appreciate you hanging out with us after the break. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jim. We just like to just dive right back on into it here and continue on with the events of April 1st. Now, of course, the 1 o'clock time came and went. And of course, we're thinking, well, I guess if any of this is legitimate, I guess someone will be here to probably take us away. And as stated, we attempted to reach the courthouse. We attempted to reach the judge to find out the legitimacy of any of this. And before we get into these documents you're showing there, Jim, I got a video that we want to show. That'll be the next video 15, and the 2 time markers there. But what happened was...
You want me to play it right now, or you want me to wait?
Yeah, hold on a second. I just want to make a little pitch here as you lead into this. But what happened was, about 1:45, there was another Louisville Metro Police Department officer who was dispatched and stated he was doing a welfare check. And so you'll see the engagement here with the officer. And so go ahead.
All the children, including all of the children. Everybody is fine. Sir, I'm not giving you that information because it's not relevant to why you're here. Why are you here? Okay, then. Okay, that's been acknowledged. You want to confirm by their mother? You want to confirm by their mother? Go ahead, tell them they're fine.
Hi. They are fine. All of them are fine.
Don't.
Okay. I can't give out any kind of personal information like that because of the nature of the case. I can't give out any personal information about the children except that they're fine. Except for the harassment that we are receiving from CPS. They're the ones that need to be investigated. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, we're throwing this back in their face. They want to say they're here to protect the children. They're the ones causing distress to the children. We're protecting the children, not them.
Okay, I think that's where the first one stopped.
Yeah, so you can kind of see there, Jim, that, there wasn't anything like, hey, you're under arrest, or why weren't you there? It was just, hey, I'm here to do a welfare check. And his words were, as I recall, he said, "Oh, I don't know what's going on here." When we were mentioning, asking him, he's like, "Well, I don't know what's going on here. I'm just here to do a welfare check." And so again, we assure him everything's fine, and then he left. So you would think that even with all of this up to this point, that if there was a legitimate concern, not just for our daughter or the violations of any law, or if there was a legitimate proceeding, that would we still be standing there? I mean, it's just like, it's just all crazy the way the whole thing unfolded. So please continue on to the next time marker, Jim. I want you to see a little bit more of Terri Lynn's comments on the nature of
okay.
what
So
really
that, okay.
is
So
going
I'm going to have to get that one, cause I didn't get that one set, the time marker for that. So do you know, I don't have the email open. Do you remember what the time marker is? I can go to it really quick.
1 minute and 40 seconds, started at 1:40.
Okay, let's see. Started at 1:40 here.
And tell him where to go to 3:40.
And go to the end of 3:40.
Okay, 1:40, almost there. There we go. 1:40. Okay, there we go.
All the children.
Oops.
Including all of the children. Everybody is fine.
Hold on. This thing got sat here and I didn't like it, so sorry about that. Let's try to start over again. Hope this starts here. 1:40. Let's go. Of course, this thing isn't cooperating with me. Sorry about this, folks. Live radio. Please hang with us here. We're trying to get this working properly. Okay, so this always wants to start over from the beginning here, and I don't.
It's not relevant to why you're here. Why are you here?
Okay, so hold on here. Bear with me here. Let me pull it up here in new again, and I'll.
You want to confirm by their mother?
Yeah, something happened with the software, and it wouldn't let me put it in. It wouldn't let me put two of them in there for some odd reason. So we'll have it all. Just give me a quick second here. We'll have it all straighten back out here in just 1 minute. Let me go back into the show here. Anyway, you can go ahead and you want to go ahead and continue to set up this this clip here while I'm looking for this. It'll just be a minute here. I'll have it just in a second.
Okay, Jim, thank you. Take your time. We're fine. And we just want to reiterate how much we appreciate you being willing to help get stories out of what's happening to families. And I know you've done some international stories, because this is not just happening in the United States, where you would think it would not be happening, since we are the land of the free and the home of the brave. And so, it's very important that the people are made aware that these things are happening in the United States, and people need to be made aware so that we can work to stop the unlawful separation of American children from their families, where a lot of them get placed into the dangerous foster care system, and some of them do not come out alive. So this needs to stop.
Okay, so this is video 15, right?
Yeah, starting at 1:40.
Okay, so let me go here and put video 15 in here.
All the children.
There we go, and then I'll be able to put it over to 1:40 here. So before, for some reason I couldn't do it because the other one, it was causing me grief. But here we go. We'll start right now. Now it's turned sideways, so I'm going to go through and turn it back and try to turn it around for you. But here we go.
He didn't show up for the court date, so they send the police out here to make sure that the children are okay, so they don't have another case that they get out in J-Town and everything. You know what I'm saying? Teddy! So that's all he's trying to do, is to make sure everybody's safe.
What's the case in J-Town?
The guy, the wife, the 2 kids, the house on fire.
No.
Okay. We didn't show up in court, so they're sending him out to make sure everybody's safe.
So, did you take the document?
Okay, he says he doesn't know anything about CPS. I'm telling him he needs to go investigate CPS if he wants to go investigate somebody. Okay, because, okay, when you go, he says, we will protect the children. Okay, they're not protecting the children. We are protecting the children. They are hurting, troubling, torturing, distressing, terrifying, disturbing, traumatizing, tormenting, and upsetting the children.
I'm not any of those.
Okay? Along with bullying, harassing, oppressing, and trying to intimidate us.
All of the things that we taught you guys not to do.
And
That's like a big dramedy.
Okay? And they are trying to take custody, which is defined as legal restraint and imprisonment. Okay?
I don't feel any of those words.
You guys are our dependents. You rely on your mommy and daddy, and that's what we do for you. But you are your own individuals. That's why I told you that one time. You're free. You're a free man.
I'm gold, actually.
Okay, I'm done.
For now.
Wait, I'm a gold for now?
You like
For now. You're a gold for now, not long. So you're going to be a nice man.
No, save the stories on it.
There we go.
So Jim, I just want to make a comment on that. We wanted to run that to the end because you can kind of see, our children are happy. They don't. I mean, yeah, it was upsetting to have all of these things going on, but as things continued on from that day, we're just like, wow, nothing's happening. No police are coming back, for any of this. And, but it kind of just began to reinforce that, hey, there's something not quite right with this whole thing going on. And, but you can kind of see our children, they feel good about where they are, and they're laughing, and they got a sense of humor, and nobody's in any distress as far as they're concerned. And we're calm, cool, and collected, just going about our regular business. But these intrusions and these enticements and the perceptions that, there's something going on, it just doesn't mesh with what their actual actions are. So I want to continue on with the documents, Jim, and I just want to share with everybody what happened after that. Around 5 o'clock that day, a couple hours later, the social services supervisor, the one I went to go see on March 28th, Roy Hardy, shows up with another relative from Terri's side of the family and presents a bunch of court process. Now, under the family court rules and procedures, court process is not to be served by the social services or the CPS person. And yet he presented this stack of documents, and I'm going to share with you this dependency calendar document. There was 2 of these, and I couldn't understand. But you can see his name. It was written up there at the top with his phone number, and other information. So I'm just going to run through these real quick. But I want you to notice one thing on some of these documents. Look for the court stamp. Every document that's filed in court, to make it an actual official filing, should have a court stamp on it. Many of these documents do not have a court stamp, which also raises questions as to the legitimacy of the process and the evidence of it being a forgery. So continue on.
So wait, look right there where they said underage. They just age unknown, and they just put a line through all of it. Like, yeah, it doesn't really matter what their age is. These people, this is just a job to them. You're not a person. You're not humans. You know this. You're not human beings, these people. This is just a job to them. This is a paycheck. It's a paycheck. This whole system's got to come down, folks. This whole system's got to come down. It's got to be burnt to the ground and started over again. Burned right to the ground, started over again. There's no other way to do it. There's no reform in CPS that can happen. There's way too many corrupt people involved. Way too many corrupt. The whole thing needs to be flushed out. These people need to be put in jail or executed if they've harmed children, and the whole thing needs to be started back up again, done the right way. This incenses me with the way that they treat people here. I apologize for my commentary, but nothing upsets me more than doing these shows and dealing with these criminals, these wholesale criminal kidnappers that happen. You're right, internationally, doesn't matter. Sorry, go ahead. I'll shut up.
No, it's okay, Jim. I just wanted to again highlight the fact that, according to the KRS, for the purposes of identification, all of this stuff should be properly filled out. And really, my experience in working with government forms is most, if not all government forms, have some sort of a form number or annotation, but none of these documents have any of that, which raises an additional question as to the legitimacy of even the actual document that was being used. So continue on here, Jim. I just want to run on to the next document, and the next 2 are pretty similar. Like I said, there was 2 copies of this, but you'll see that there's some things stated on here that we later discover are not accurate whatsoever. You'll see there that there was a bench warrant put out for me on this date, okay, and yet there's nothing for Terri, okay, and it's like, you know, full cash bond of $5,000. Well, what's that for, right? I mean, so here we are on April 1st, that is supposedly after this hearing, but this officer shows up at 14:45. When was his bench warrant put out?
Am I on the
And he
right
shows
page?
up
I must not be on the right page. I'm in a dependency calendar. So
it's the next one, Jim. Sorry.
my
Yeah,
bad.
you can zoom in.
Oh, there it is.
You can
Okay,
see
got
a
it.
couple
Got
of-
it. Got it.
Can I say something on that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
sure.
So, yeah, I'd like people that are watching to really take in this, because this has got quite a bit of information on it. So this is what Roy Hardy
Yeah, Roy
presented, this CPS social worker, the Shaniqua Potter's supervisor. This is what he brought to our house on April the 1st. So as you can see at the bottom, it's supposedly signed by the family court judge, who she is currently the head of the family court in Jefferson County, Tara Haggerty. So you can see there, it's supposedly signed by her on the 1st of April. And if you look at the middle section there, and Mark can talk more about the bench warrant and the bond and all of that, but it says court is issuing an ECO, which stands for emergency custody order for children. Okay, so that was in with this paperwork, but this was not law enforcement that was bringing this to our house. This was the CPS social worker, Roy Hardy, and a relative of mine who has a degree in social work and works under the Louisville Metro Police Department. This was a different relative that was also connected with the police department, but through her job. So you can see that. And then I'm sure Mark will probably also touch on the part at the top where it mentions a Lieutenant Dale Thompson. Now, on another piece of paperwork that we have, it identifies Dale Thompson as a sergeant. And one of the things that we have done is we've went to the Louisville Metro government pay records. There is no Dale Thompson listed being on the payroll for the Louisville Metro Police Department. So either that, you know, that's like a nickname. There's other Thompsons, but there's no Dale Thompson. So that's just another irregularity that comes up during the case. So this document here is really important as far as what's going on with our situation. So I'll let Mark go on.
Okay, Jim, I kind of want to rip through a couple other documents here. There's a lot to touch upon as we go forward. But again, you can see that there was an establishment apparently of some sort of a warrant, but none of these guys are acting on anything. Okay.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry. I just want to say one more thing. Just to reiterate, this says court is issuing an ECO for children, the emergency custody order, which was included with this paper that Roy Hardy brought to our house. It says parents are to have no contact with the children upon execution of the emergency custody order pending a temporary removal hearing. Okay. Roy Hardy did not take our children that day. The police did not come to take our children that day. Nobody came to take our children. Okay. The next interaction that they had was when we actually, the attorney that we had Mark go to court on April the 6th with Amy. So there's something not right here, because this is saying from the court that there's an emergency custody order, but nobody ever comes to take our children.
Okay, Jim, I just want to continue.
Just as a side note, there's like 40 slides and we're on number 11. And we're going to have we're going to be really hard pressed to get through them all unless you go through them quickly. Just want to let you know, we got quite a few slides left to go. You want me to just continue to keep moving forward?
Yeah, I just want to touch upon, Jim, as we move forward into the next ones. And these are two of the same dependency calendar documents without his name written on. I don't know why we got 2 copies there, but moving on to the affidavits. Now, the affidavits are supposed to serve as a basis for the emergency custody order, a legitimate ECO. And again, no form number on this. I'm just going to zip through all of these real fast, but you can see the forms are incompletely filled out. There's no case number on the affidavit. Maybe that wasn't generated yet. Doesn't even identify what court And then down here in the middle, you'll see, according to KRS 620030 paragraph 1, it states I have made a report regarding these facts of the following entity. Okay. According to state law, they're required to notify local law enforcement. That's what that said when I read that to you a few minutes ago. And yet that's not checked off. So even all the people who are supposed to have been notified and properly annotated aren't properly annotated according to this affidavit. So we'll just continue on. You can kind of see the incompleteness, an incomplete written instrument, which is a violation of state law.
So what number slide are you on? I'm on 13. I'm not.
Yep, that's what.
Okay, number 13.
You can just hear that they have me listed, but with no address, even though I'm residing with my same address, you know. So we'll just continue on, and then you'll see here on the next slide, Jim, this is where it really begins to take on the character of something suspicious, even more than what we've seen so far. Down here, it says sworn to me on April 1st, no commission. And it looks to me like that's Roy Hardy's signature as a deputy clerk of court. Now, he's the social services supervisor. That looks like his signature. And I'm going to show you something here in a couple minutes that makes that will show some relevancy to it.
Looks like Roy Hardy to me. If I had to, Roy Hardy.
Or there is no one, we did a check at the time. There was no one listed as a deputy clerk with the initials RH in the Jefferson County Family Court System. So, you know, you can conclude that, well, if there's no one listed as a deputy clerk, who's really signing as a deputy clerk? And impersonating a public servant is a Class A misdemeanor according to KRS 519050. You know, it says, you know, and that would be impersonating a public servant, you know?
Yeah, I would use all those lesser charges just for bargaining tools. I would go after him for kidnapping. That's what they need to be. And I think that's federally that you can be put to death for that. I really think you can.
Running short on time, and I really want to get through some of these other documents and make a couple other points before we run out. If you continue on, I'm just going to show you the ECO for Amy. You can kind of see at the top, no order granting or denying emergency custody. Okay.
Let me just make that point. This is important because as you go through these emergency custody orders that Roy Hardy dropped off at our house, at the top, there's a box to check off granting or denying. Now, the only 3 children that was noted for were our, not the younger one, but our 3 middle type children. Okay, so that we'll be able to explain that later on in another interview, hopefully. But as he goes through the emergency custody orders, it's not checked off for Amy, Noah, Elena, or Abby. It's only checked off for Bo, David, Teddy, and Daisy.
Okay, Jim, so we can just continue on, and we're going to go through these because most of them are pretty similar, and the people can kind of take a quick look or stop the video and then go back and play it later to take a closer look at the documents and the incompleteness. I just wanted to present the actual stack of documents that Roy Hardy illegally delivered, or served to us on that day. So we'll just kind of keep on going through here until I can show you the correlation to Roy Hardy's signature. And I'll just let you go ahead and continue on down, Jim, and I'll tell you when to stop.
So just keep going. I'm at 18. Just keep going.
It'll be on slide number 24. If you stop there, okay.
Okay. I'm going to go through these. I'm going to go through these slowly, so people can stop the video and check them out if they want to.
Yeah. So when you get the number to slide 24, stop there for a minute.
Yeah, we're on 20. There's 21, 22, 23, and then just give a chance.
And just to know, so people know, Roy Hardy supposedly left his position after our case was opened.
Convenient. Okay, so here's number 24.
Yeah, now 24 there at the bottom, this is where there's a real clear correlation to Roy Hardy's signature. This was on the affidavit for our son, Terri. But I just wanted people to key in and look at that annotation on that document there, because I'm going to bring that out in just a few slides later. If you go on to the next slide, when I went to go to the L&N building and visit with Roy Hardy, I asked him for his business card. And this is an extraction from the business card of when he wrote, because I asked him where to go to get records. And he wrote this down on his business card, and I enlarged the R so you can kind of see the similarities of how he wrote the letter R and the R there for Roy.
So the black is from the court document. The blue R is extracted from Roy Hardy's actual writing off of when he wrote down about open records.
So go on to the next slide, Jim, and you will see the actual business card. And my annotation there for 328 was me making a note of when I was there on March 28th at 11 a.m. So you can continue on. And again, a lot of these other documents are the same for Abby. Again, it's listed as Abigail, an incorrect annotation.
Can you just tell me what number?
And if you can go on down to slide number, stop at 34 for a minute. I just want the people to again see real quick. The family court rules state that, process may be served by any person authorized to serve process except the state child protective service agency. That will be in slide 34. We had presented that before, but I just included it there again for the sake of just reiterating the point.
Until he gets to that, that's important.
Let me go quick. Donald Skaggs and Julie Asif, the maternal grandfather. Is that who the children went with eventually?
Yes, that's who was given temporary custody. And Julie Asif's twin brother was a lieutenant on the Louisville Metro Police Department force, Danny Asif.
Oh, isn't that something? You got a little family deal going on here, don't you, with the everything? It sounds like it's pretty convenient. Okay, so here's another one here. Now you said number 34. Is that what you say you want me to stop at?
Go on down to 34.
Okay, I just want to get so people can see this here real quick on the video. Almost there. This is 33. Is that Tara Haggerty? That's supposed to be the judge. Now this doesn't look like the same Tara Haggerty signature that you showed me before. It looks like it's a little bit different maybe. Do you think someone?
Yes, Tara Haggerty is the head of family court currently in Jefferson County. She was the judge that we went to see for after. When Mark actually went to court, and we'll get into that later with just Amy, it was actually Judge Judith Bartholomew. But Tara Haggerty was the judge that most of the proceedings went before.
Okay, Jim, so go ahead and continue down. I just want to highlight a couple points. I'm sure that people have seen plenty of holes in the documents that they're.
Wait a second, he's on 30.
Yeah, and
so
that's.
You can see there where it says go back so I can see what it says. Okay. That it's supposed to be presented, served by any person authorized except the state child protective service agency.
So this guy, Roy guy, it clearly states right there that he is not allowed to do it, and he did it anyway. And it says it right there, he's not allowed to.
Yes, Roy Hardy, Hardy, Roy Hardy.
So there's clearly some evidence here that there's a conspiracy involving a few different people and the attempted kidnapping and the eventual kidnapping of our children. But go on to the next slide, Jim, and we'll wrap this up as we come to the close of this interview. But I just want to highlight again in paragraph 7 of the next slide that in red, it's just to falsely make a written instrument means to make an incomplete written instrument, okay? In paragraph 8, it says a forged instrument means a written instrument which has been falsely made, completed, or altered. Clearly, this meets the criteria of a class felony under Kentucky law, which if you go on to the next slide, KRS 516020 clearly says it. There's two type of degrees that I included here. One is in the first degree, and I highlight part of an issue of money, stamps, and securities. Now, when they take your children under ASFA, the Title IV money that flows to the state, okay, that involves the issuance of money through the secretary of the HHS, of the Health and Human Services Department. So, that's a Class C felony, all right? And then even if you want to say, oh, well, it really doesn't meet that criteria, if you go on to the next slide, it does meet the second degree, but either one is a Class C or D felony, okay? And this, in paragraph 1, it says, with the intent to defraud in which purports to be or which is calculated to become or represent a commercial instrument affecting legal right, interest, obligation, or status, okay, in respect to our children. So clearly it meets that criteria. And then if you go on down real quick, and we'll wrap this up on this pretty strong point, but it says a person who's
To the next slide.
Yeah, next slide, Jim. If you look at KRS 509040, it identifies what kidnapping is. When he unlawfully restrains another person when his intent is to accomplish or to advance the commission of a felony, or in paragraph C, to terrorize the victim or another, or subparagraph F, to deprive the parents of the custody of a minor when the person taking the minor is not the person exercising custodial control. So clearly, all of this evidence points to such a thing, exactly that.
So when I call them kidnappers on the show that I've done 100 times, I've called them kidnappers. There's the actual legal definition of them being kidnappers right there. To deprive the parents or guardian of the custody of a minor when the person taking the minor is not the person exercising custodial control or supervision of the minor, as the term person exercising control or supervision. This is kidnapping, folks. This is straight out, flat out kidnapping. There's no other way to put it. It's their kidnappers.
Today, Jim, what we have is our children are being held hostage. Okay, they've been illegally taken, and they've been held all this time pursuant to forcing us to comply with services so they can get even more money. But it's all illegal. It's all a fraud. There's forgery. There's felonies, additional felonies that have occurred correlating to the other ones we've already presented, and we have a lot more to bring forth for the American people.
Do you need him to go to that one?
So if you can go on to the next slide, Jim, I just want to see here at the end, it states the definition of what it means to restraint under the same KRS in respect to kidnapping. It means to restrict another person's movements in such a manner as to cause a substantial interference with his liberty by moving it from one place to another. They have not allowed our children to visit with us without depriving us of our Fourth Amendment right to search our person. We had 2 visits with our children after they were taken, and but they started recording, and we had to have a supervised visit, and they were writing things down to use against us, and we wanted to avoid all that. We felt that we were being deprived of our Fourth Amendment protection. It wasn't because we didn't want to see our children. It was that we don't want to give these criminals any more evidence to use against us while we've been pursuing justice, that to this day we are still being denied and remain ignored.
We're no longer ignored. That's that's the goal here, for you to be no longer ignored. There's 2 more slides left. We can go over these if you like.
Okay, I didn't know what we had in respect to time. So the next one, Jim, this was an arrest warrant that I was never presented. Again, there was never one for Terri, but there was 7 of these in the court file that we retrieved on November 23rd, 2016. And you'll see here that here we have a warrant of arrest never served in accordance with state process. Okay. And it's really strange, because if this was legitimately issued, okay, on April the 1st, why didn't that officer who showed up at 2:45 execute that instead of just a welfare check? Why in the succeeding several days, 5 or 6 days, was there no attempt by any police officers anywhere in the state of Kentucky, sheriffs, state police, the local Louisville Metro Police Department, to come back to the house and execute this? They did not. This was, according to what we've discovered, all after the fact stuff put into a court file to make it look legitimate, but it was not. And I want to take you up to the last slide, because I did go see a deputy sheriff on April the 2nd at Southeast Christian Church in Louisville, Kentucky. Initially, I met with 3 of them, and 2 of them left. And I shared with this deputy sheriff these documents, these forged documents. And he took my ID and he wanted to do a check on me. And he did not arrest me, because I wanted to see if there was a legitimate thing out there. And so there was no arrest made of me, and which made me think that the bench warrant and later that other warrant that I just showed you is not legitimate. It's very strange that, you go through all of this. And his response to me after about 2 hours or so of presenting this, that he just told me to go see if we were on the court docket. That was his response. And I'm asking him to pursue a criminal investigation for felony forgery and unlawful process. And that was my response. So we later checked the court docket, but we could never verify it because it doesn't list the names. And so then we attempted to get legal counsel, which we're not able to attain throughout this entire time up to this point. And then we'll kind of pick up in the storyline from there, because there's a lot more stuff to come. But we appreciate you letting us share this with the American people.
Folks, this is the fourth video, and if you go back, if you have the time to go back and watch the other three, you'll see that Terri, Mark and Terri Lynn Steman got caught up in some sort of a ring, some sort of a kidnapping ring, and you saw just by the definition that it's on its face kidnapping, no doubt about it. There's people involved in the system, in the court systems that are involved, in the social services system, and folks, there's people involved in hospitals, teachers, lawyers. Really, I mean, there are so many. There's so much of this going on, and there's so many of these rings that are up and around all these counties that, I mean, these people like Mark and Terri don't have a chance when you go up against a system like this. You just don't have a chance, and it's going on in America every day. We appreciate you so much coming on the show here, Mark and Terri Lynn. Is there anything that you want to say here in closing before we close out this part of the broadcast, and then there's much more to come, I'm sure. You have plenty of documentation. Anything you'd like to say before today's show's over?
We want to thank you again, Jim, for giving us the opportunity and for all the information that you share, helping to get the information out. We appreciate you so very much. And we can be reached for anybody that wants to contact us about this, talk about additional. If anybody wants to do interviews with us, if anybody in law enforcement wants to reach out to us, if anybody wants to talk to us, we can be reached through email at letourchildrengo@protonmail.com, or you can direct message me on Twitter. My direct messages are open at No Longer Ignored. And we are working on starting an organization to help other families, and that's going to be at letourchildrengo.org.
And Jim, in closing, I just want to say that I want my children, who I know at some point will see these things, to know that the truth will set us free, and that we love them very much, and we will never leave them or forsake them, and we will fight for justice for them and for other children and other parents who are caught up in these travesties happening in the United States of America. It must end.
It must end. It's a national tragedy, folks, that no one talks about. I think a lot of this stuff comes out, like I said, Mark and Terri, a lot of the stuff that's coming out here with these people that have been busted, these child trafficking rings. I mean, Epstein himself came out and said that they utilize the foster care system for their children, because they have, you understand, folks, children that are in foster care, they don't have any natural parents to protect them. They take away the person's natural parents. Otherwise, the person that's looking after them in foster care, now there's good foster care parents out there, don't get me wrong, but think about it for a second. You have a scenario where their foster care parent, it's not their blood children. They don't have, what kind of bond do they have with them? They've broken the relationship where the bond was, and then pretty much they're free to do what they want, because the foster parents in some cases don't care, as long as they get the money. It's a broken system. It's a broken system. Like as I said, the whole thing needs to be burned down, and people need to be thrown in jail. And in my estimation, executed. Some of them need to be executed, of course, for willfully harming children. Folks, we appreciate you. We do appreciate you coming on the broadcast, and thanks so much. We look forward to having you back on here again next time. Support these folks. Support these parents, folks. Go to No Longer Ignored on Twitter. Send them emails of encouragement, prayers. Reach out to them. If you watch this show and you are another news show, please call them up and get them on an interview with bigger platforms than mine to get their word out. Got to stop it, folks. Mark and Terri Lynn, we so much appreciate you coming here on the broadcast, and we look forward to speaking to you next time.
Thank you, Jim. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Okay, folks, there we go here. Let me hang this line up here. Okay, there go Mark and Terri Lynn. Folks, that's all the time we got here. Appreciate you looking in. You can go to northwestlibertynews.com and northwestlibertynews.com to support this program, or go to YouTube, Northwest Liberty News, to see the previous video interviews we've done here. We so much appreciate you looking in. Till next time, this is James White from Northwest Liberty News saying bye now.